Hey, I'm Andrew Larson, Director of Business Development for OneAccord, and I am here today with Paige Shope. She is president of Yoked. Yoked is a chief of staff as a service company, and we're going to talk for a little while about what her company does, how it benefits you and your company, and why you should get in touch with her. So, Paige, thanks for coming here today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, kick us off. Tell us how you got started. You and I were talking before this, and you were giving me a little bit of your background.
Yeah.
And I think that would probably be cool to let other people know how you got started and then how you wound up with Yoked.
Yeah, so I was one of those crazy people that was attracted to this idea of fundraising. So I, out of college, decided that's something I would do. I really wanted to work in the nonprofit field. So after doing your post-college peruse around into different places, I ended up in Seattle and started doing fundraising and really loved it, loved the concept, loved the idea of it, but really wanted to get more into the strategy side. I started consulting and found I really liked coaching and teaching people how to do not only fundraising, but nonprofit strategy and how to set up your team and all the integrations within that, and then had the opportunity to then start running the business of the consultancy. And that was always a dream of my husband's and I's, to run a business together. And I just found I really loved running the business too. Like, I loved the consulting part, but the business was so interesting.
Making everything work.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I didn't think I'd ever like finance or accounting, but it's kind of fun to make sure everything aligns. So and just the big strategy, like, where's the vision of this company? Where are we headed? Mm-hmm. What's our mark in the world? And how are we going to get there? Felt really fun to me. So I was doing that, loving it. But every time I would leave an engagement with a client, I'd be like, well, I taught you some good things, but there's a capacity issue here that we're just not addressing. Mm. So often, especially in the nonprofit sector, finding somebody that can talk C-suite level strategy while actually doing the work feels like a unicorn, and you can't find them anywhere. Either you have that C-suite person that has probably all the right answers, but doesn't execute, or you have the executor that doesn't really know where they're going or have vision for the future.
Yeah.
So when I was about to leave a client, I was like, I can't leave you. So instead, we kind of piloted, what would it look like for us to act like your chief of staff? Come in and provide essentially like a fulcrum for that CEO to drive a little farther, stay a little bit more focused, and also have like a bridge or translator to his staff. So we stayed on with him and slowly started growing from there.
And how long is a typical engagement for Yoked?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're not consultants, even though I have my consulting hat on, other people have their consulting hat on. We really see ourselves as a fractional staff member and a part of their team, an extension of who you are. I have titles and emails actually on some of these staff's teams because there's no differentiation in some ways. I would say the one difference is you don't just get me. You get the expertise of my team, because you do not want me doing any of your tech integrations, but I have somebody for that. So as a result, the engagements can be until they want to hire somebody full time to bridge that gap if they're hiring us during scale, or we stay on because they want that fractional expert that can manage people or be kind of fluid within their organization.
Yeah. So tell me if this resonates for you. It seems to me that we're moving more towards an ecosystem style of doing business where a lot of people are figuring out what their swim lane is and then outsourcing everything that is outside of that swim lane. So as you're engaging with clients, do you find that there is a lot of outsourced services?
Great question. I think there's two types of leaders, right? There's one type who it's really hard for them to let go. And that person really wants to keep everything in-house and just kind of struggles to let go of the true authority. And as a result, that's often when we see stagnation in businesses, we see lack of growth or lack of execution or direction towards the vision of nonprofits. And it does affect the business downstream. And especially as the economy and just how workforce and the limits or the tightening of unemployment is continuing on, it's getting harder and harder to get those people in-house and pay them and compensate them appropriately. So I see some stagnation for those people that aren't willing to say, hey, why am I doing all my accounting? Or why am I doing all of this project management and running like our traction play? That's not my best hat as CEO. It's not that I can't do it. In fact, I think it's good that CEOs do that for a while when they're starting their business. But there's like an ability to tap into experts. And yes, on the ecosystem thing, when we're seeing organizations thrive, I've totally worked with multiple other vendors.
Yeah.
And it's been really sweet to say, oh, you're an expert here, you're an expert here. I would say the downfall of that is somebody needs to manage them, right? Mm-hmm. So oftentimes we actually manage those vendors for them because we're the CEO's best friend. So,
I was just going to ask if that becomes the chief of staff's role then.
Yeah, that's totally a part of what we're doing. And I think that's the fear, right, of crossing over into that. All of a sudden you have 12 experts that you're coordinating, and it's a lot of work, especially when you're trying to get that QA, quality assurance, as you execute and tie a bow on your projects, right?
Yeah. So put me in the seat of the business owner, right? So I've built a business. Maybe I'm 20 years in. I've got my way of doing things. I've tried to shoulder maybe too much responsibility. And all of a sudden you show up on my doorstep and you're going to help me take a lot of things off of my plate. How do you present that to me? Just given the archetype, right, of the business owner. How do you present that to me?
I would say, like, and I do believe this is true, we see common problems of common businesses, but truly your experience and how you lead is unique, and we are looking to uniquely fit your needs. So we've found time and time again, when we start with an analysis of what you actually need, it's a lot clearer to all of us. So we go in and we say, we truly try to get to know where your roadblocks are. And it's very funny, very quickly we'll find things you're holding on to, and we'll be able to dig in and find out why. Maybe you're holding on to accounting because you outsourced to a bookkeeper who messed up everything, and you really don't want to dig back out of that. Okay, let's talk about that. What are the systems we can put in place there? Or maybe it's this possession of the vision, and you're feeling like if you've let go a little too fast in other scenarios, and you've seen things get away from you, and all of a sudden the culture is gone, or your quality just decreases. So I would say we totally acknowledge you can keep holding it. Like, as a 20-year business person, you've done it for 20 years. But do you want the next 20 years to look like these past 20 years? Because if so, we should keep doing what you're doing, or we can take things off your plate and actually give you space to vision and envision what you can do next. And that's a lot more fun. Like, as a business owner who has done all the accounting and all the little things, it's a lot more fun when I'm in my sweet spot of visioning and leading the team well.
Yeah, absolutely. So now tell me, what do your clients stress about?
Yeah.
And where do they find solutions?
Yeah. So our clients are bogged down. Like, I don't know if you've ever been in a scenario where your to-do list is just way too long to get through, right? And all of it's high priority. It's not like I can boot something in favor of something else. It's like it needs to get done.
Yeah.
So many of our CEOs are like staying up late and waking up early, and they need somebody to actually do the work alongside them. OneAccord does a great job of giving them the map, and then they need somebody to pull with them. That's Yoked, is this idea that we're actually gonna like yoke ourselves together with you, and let's pull and till some ground together. So there's value to both of those things, right? There's value to the strategic partner and strategic oversight and direction, but then there's value to, okay, we need to work hard together.
Yeah. What do you find that clients have tried before that didn't work?
Great question. Consultants get a bad rap. And I don't think all consulting agencies are the same, but so often I've heard people say they came in with great ideas, but that's not what we needed, or we needed that, but then we were left alone. So we actually pair really well with consultants in that, hey, they did a great job giving you, once again, that roadmap or direction, but you need some help here.
What's your favorite success story that you can talk about so
Oh.
far since starting the business?
Yeah, my favorite success story is probably from our first client. And super interestingly, we started working with him in September, and we got to this point in February, actually, where he realized that he didn't have the right people on board. So he's actually reducing his workforce, and he's used this time, and we've been able to like fit the need of those people that he's working with and kind of flex into those roles to cover that, while he's able to strategically hire for the right skill sets now that his scaling organization has identified what they actually need. So it's really exciting because now he's forming the team that he needs to take them to the next level. And he didn't have to hold on to people because of a threat of implosion or like just like a capacity issue, because we were able to fill that capacity gap. So I love that we were able to identify with him what the gaps were. We realized that, hey, we need to implement some key performance indicators to make sure everybody's on track. We realized some people weren't on track, and we're able to actually decide and understand what we need to be doing, what our lead measures are to accomplish our goals in these different areas, and figure out the right people to place there.
It makes me curious. One of the things that I've run into as I've met with business owners has been, well, why do you need to do an analysis? I work in the business every day. I know I can just tell you anything that you need to know.
Yeah.
Do you run into that? Okay, so that's a yes.
Yes.
And what's your response to that? How do you talk about blind spots?
Yeah. Well, and sometimes they do know, but they don't know how to activate or work past that, right? And I'm sure you've encountered that of they could identify the issue, but they're so far in the weeds, and there's people at play, people they care about at play, or there's a system and a routine at play, and fixing it feels like a monumental task. So it's both that issue, but then also those blind spots, right? I actually was just in a conversation where I was able to point out an interaction that was really inappropriate, really disrespectful to management. And it was kind of like I turned on the lights. It's like, oh, you were able to give words to something we've been experiencing, but we've been so far into it that we can't see it because the team and the dynamics have just been going, and we've taken this as, well, this is how it's always going to be. And it doesn't have to be that way. So that happens both with team dynamics, but also in operations. So I know that OneAccord sees this too. We, being in this ecosystem, working with multiple businesses, we see similar problems, but we also get a really cool variety of solutions.
Yeah.
Which business owners, when you're running your own business and you're not able to have the luxury of time to raise your eyes or see into somebody else's intimate business, you're not going to be able to even experience what a new solution might look like, but we can.
Yeah, I love that you used the word ecosystem because we were talking about that a little bit before, and we'll come back to it. Because we do seem to be in this space where people are realizing the value of not needing to be everything to everyone, understanding their swim lane. And you actually just posted on LinkedIn that you got coffee with one of your competitors, but it's for the good of the ecosystem, right? Because there's a personality fit, and there may be times that you need to collaborate with somebody that you would deem kind of a competitor. So talk a little bit more about that. And as you sit in that chief of staff spot, what do you see in terms of effective ecosystems? What
Yeah.
makes an effective ecosystem?
Well, funnily enough, her and I are actually talking about how we can collaborate because we feel the same way. Like life business is not a zero sum game. So let's build on that. Let's collaborate with everyone. Like the pie is always growing. But with ecosystems, I've been in a situation where I have to be the marketing director and the finance director and the accountant, and it's exhausting. Like, and it's not my best use of time or skill set. And I don't need to hire somebody full-time to be my marketing director right now.
Right.
I don't need a full-time accountant. So this ability to connect easier and better than we've ever done before, video, like it, love it, hate it, allows us to be so interconnected. And I'm able to say, oh, you're way better at that than I am. Let's pop you in here. I don't have to be all things. Oh, you're really fantastic. Let's do that. So even Yoked as a whole, we're like a mini ecosystem of talented chief of staffs that have different facets and skill sets. But also when we tap outside of that, your business is able to go so much further, so much faster, because you don't have to sit down and do the accounting every night.
Yeah, absolutely. And relationships matter a lot in that too. So what we find with our network partners, maybe you have 3 banks that could all provide the same service to a business. But one banker at one bank is also really into the same thing that business owner is into. So maybe you have a business owner that owns a construction company, but they're really into cars, right?
Yeah.
And out of the 3 banks that could all provide them the same service, the personality match is going to be better with that one banker that is also really into cars.
Yeah.
Right. And so putting them together. So as you place chiefs of staff, how much does personality and relationship play into an effective engagement for you and for the client?
Yeah, that's a great question, because personality does totally matter. We both need that expertise, right? But also that camaraderie, that ability to go back and forth, because that chief of staff is your trusted companion. And if you're not able to lean on them, or there's a personality rub there, it's not going to work out.
Do you get that a lot? Sorry to interrupt, but do you get that a lot in the beginning of relationships where maybe there's a little awkwardness between, okay, you're in here, but you're a vendor. I don't know how much I can actually trust you, how much I can actually lean on you. Do owners have a little bit of a wall up when you come in at first?
So we more so have our original model actually was billable hours. And we realized that when we did that created a wall. So we've switched from billable hours to chief of staff as a service, where you're paying a retainer fee and you don't have to account for hours. So if I just spent 36 hours with a client last week at a conference, I'm not billing them for every single hour. And I got so much insight into their business that was invaluable for me. It was worth every single hour of my time. I'm not on retainer with them for 36 hours.
Right.
So we actually see that more so of oftentimes when you're charging for individual things, there's kind of like we try to take money as much out of the equation as possible, because we're just going to get our job done. And our job is supporting you. So that can be an ongoing conversation. I've never been taken advantage of by a client. Actually, I've had clients say, we need to up our hours before I even bring it up. So I think that you're right. There's some personality dynamic that we need to build. But very quickly, as we start adding value, it's like we kind of have to like grab things out of their hand.
Right.
We have to be like, I can do that for you.
So for
Hand
people,
that over.
Keep going with that. So for people that don't understand, what a chief of staff does,
Totally.
Let alone what a fractional chief of staff does, could you give a rundown of what are the things that you take off of their plate, that you grab from them? Where do those services extend into inbox triage and time blocking, and how exactly do your people make them and their people more effective?
Yeah. So I'm little rant here. There's a lot of like chief of staff is totally coming back into the for-profit and nonprofit sector out of just just the military sector.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still fluctuation in what it means, like, is my short answer. So we kind of get to define it together with our clients. But something we really love and have grasped onto is this idea of 3 different types of chief of staff.
Okay.
So there's one, which is, we say tier 1 chief of staff. So that means I'm it's kind of this elevated EA role. You're my client.
Mm-hmm.
You're my executive. I'm going to do absolutely everything to make your life work. All those little things that fly at you as a CEO, we've dove into them, like, for sure. I the other day I wrote a script for a CEO to do a presentation. So it's really, you think about your to-do list as a CEO, and that tier 1 chief of staff is, yes, able to create systems to make your life a little easier, but we're also able to say, give me those 5 things on your to-do list. Even if they feel really big and hairy, like, I can get a good first draft on your desk to edit.
Okay. And what about tier 2?
Yeah, so tier 2, all of a sudden I get to be the translator of the executive team. So I don't just manage the CEO, but I kind of manage the project management of the whole organization. So I'm not taking on necessarily like the one tier, right? But I'm able to manage, and you kind of think about traction. It's that integrator role in a lot of ways. Right. And I'm still able to take to-do list items, but I get to be this like strategic umbrella over those executives.
Okay. And then so tier 3, what's left?
Yeah, tier 3 is everything. So It's like I am the go-to for the entire organization. That means I'm under everybody. All of a sudden, Trish, the bookkeeper, has an issue. She's reporting up to me. Nobody comes to the CEO directly unless we're like an executive session. And that's, I would say, is for a lot bigger organizations. Oftentimes, we can usually still function in that tier 2 space with a really small knit team. But once you get into tier 3 and you're a bigger company, I would say that's when you graduate from us, actually. You need an in-house chief of staff because you need somebody that's able to run around to these different departments and be full-time. So our sweet spot really is that tier 1 and honestly more of that tier 2, so we can act as that almost global chief of staff for your executive team.
All right, sweet. So closing question. You've told us what you do. What do you say to the people that are listening to this? They're maybe interested in exploring the world of what would my world look like if I had a chief of staff? Yeah. What's your elevator pitch, your closing elevator pitch for why they should contact you and how they should contact you?
Yeah. You can find us online at yokedpartners.com or email me at Paige at yokedpartners.com. And we'd love to sit down for coffee to make sure and see if our expertise matches your need. So we're really looking for executives who are looking to pull a little further or a little faster and need somebody to do that alongside them.